If you only have a couple minutes for scripture today, I got you. Welcome to today's Bite-Sized Biblecast. Today we're in the book of 2 Timothy, chapter 1, verse 7. For God gave us a spirit, not of fear, but of power and love and self-control. And that's in the ESV. And this one's really timely for me. My family is going through a pretty difficult time right now on multiple fronts, and things just feel really scary. So let's break down what these words actually mean. Let's go back to the original text and find out, what does spirit mean? What does power and love and self-control really truly mean? Because going back and looking at the original text and the original translations, that is one of the most valuable tools that we have when studying the Bible. There's this often great debate on what translation of the Bible should I use? And honestly, it really doesn't matter. As long as you are using multiple translations, that's incredibly helpful. And also going back and looking at the original text. For me, I love the Blue Letter Bible app. That is one of the tools that I use pretty much every single day in my study. So what I've done is gone and looked up those words, spirit, power, love, and self-control. I was gonna look up fear too, but it literally was just like fear. So let's dig in. So the original word for spirit is pneuma, which is the vital principle by which the body is animated, the power by which the human being feels, thinks, decides, the soul, a simple essence devoid of all or at least all grosser matter and possessed of the power of knowing, desiring, deciding, and acting. So it really is kind of what we think of when we think of a spirit. Like God has placed this spirit in us of power, love, and self-control. So the word for power is dunamis, which means strength, power, ability, inherent power, power residing in a thing by virtue of its nature or by which a person or thing exerts or puts forth. Power for performing miracles, moral power and excellence of soul. And there are a couple more examples, but moral power and excellence of soul is the one that really sticks out to me there because, scripture is so clear that there is no one good. Not even one person is good, truly good. But when we trust in God, we are given this moral excellence of, moral power and excellence of soul. And excellence of soul is a term of like a grouping of words I've never heard before. And so that one's really interesting to me. Next up, we have the word love, which I love digging into the multiple different meanings of the word love because there are several different kinds, and going back to the original text allows us to differentiate a little bit better what the author of the book actually is talking about, because love kind of tends to get thrown around to the point of desensitization in American evangelical Christianity, where it doesn't really mean anything. It's kind of used as a catch-all term by some for just acceptance of everything. It's almost used as the opposite of judgment, and judgment is seen as a very bad thing. But other people tend to dismiss it completely because it does seem so nebulous and so fluffy, and we know that God's wrath is just as important as his love and his righteousness. And so I love digging in and seeing, okay, what actual type of love are we talking about here? And the word used here is agape, which the guy in the Strong's thing who actually says the word to help you pronounce it said agape, but I grew up in the church, I've always heard it agape, and the little emphasis thing was on the ga part, not the ah, so I'm gonna say agape, which is affection, goodwill, love, benevolence, brotherly love. It's interesting to me that we can separate the word love from affection. We don't necessarily think of loving our neighbor as having affection for our neighbor. We kind of want to skip over that part. At least that's kind of what I've experienced in my life. We take the intimacy out of love when it's not people in our immediate circle that we're comfortable with. And this brotherly love, this goodwill, we tend to think in our culture today that you can love someone, but we don't necessarily extend them goodwill or affection. And so that was interesting to me. That struck me. So then finally we have self-control, which I'm going to need to look up the pronunciation on this one again because it's a tricky one. Hold on. All right, here we go. It's sophronismas. And that is the word for self-control here. Sophronismas, an admonishing or calling to soundness of mind, to moderation and self-control. Self-control and moderation or it's also translated to discipline, which, as someone with ADHD, especially from the executive function standpoint, that is something I honestly struggle with. People with ADHD tend to be rather impulsive. They tend to kind of follow the dopamine. I have worked very hard to try and develop my sense of self-control and my work on my executive function, but it's really difficult, especially when your brain is just kind of wired differently and wired against that. And also, this is like, hold on. All right, that's going to be less distracting than my bun bouncing around, but now I look like a lion. But it's fine. We're rolling with it, you guys. We are rolling with it this morning. So, at least for me and in my experience of what the church looks like in America, these three things are pretty lacking. Let's go through them one more time. So, the power, strength and power, moral power, and excellence of soul. Agape, affection, goodwill, love, benevolence, brotherly love. Self-control, self-control and moderation. Discipline. These are not things that come naturally to us, and especially when we are in a situation where fear abounds, it is incredibly easy to slip back into our flesh and focus on what we are capable of in and of ourselves through our own strength, instead of allowing the Spirit that God has given us to rest on us and operate through us. So He has given us a spirit not of fear, but of moral power and excellence of soul, affection, goodwill, brotherly love, self-control and moderation, and discipline. That is what God has given us a spirit of. And what we need to do when we are in situations like I am in right now, where things are really scary. There is not a certain end to the story here. It's not certain which way things are gonna go or if they're gonna go well. And there's some seriously heavy stuff on the line. We do not need to have a spirit of fear, but we can choose to push aside the feelings of our flesh, which is where that self-control comes into play. And God is giving us a spirit of power, love, and self-control that only when we are operating through Him, when we are suppressing our flesh and trying to allow Him to operate in and through us, that is when we are going to be able to operate in ways that are contrary to our nature. We are selfish creatures by nature. We are sinful creatures by nature. We are fearful creatures by nature, but that is not the spirit with which we need to operate. So I want to invite you to join me today in trying to be conscious about suppressing those urges of the flesh, those desires to be selfish, to kind of freak out and panic a little bit, to try and scramble to find a solution that makes us feel safe, even if it's not the best. And I want to invite you to join me in welcoming in and allowing to fully flourish in us the spirit that God gives us of power, which again, that's moral power and excellence of soul, of love, affection, goodwill, love, benevolence, brotherly love, and of self-control, moderation, discipline. And something that can look like is asking God to help you do all of those things. Asking God to make you aware where your flesh is speaking louder than the spirit that God has given you. Where can you fine-tune things? And honestly, especially, I feel like small tweaks are the most effective because they're able to be prolonged. They're able to be sustained a lot better than like big overhaul changes we try to make. So ask God today, where is one small area where you can override your flesh and allow the spirit that He has given you to operate in and speak into the situation? He will give us wisdom if we ask. He is already giving us a spirit of power, love, and self-control. It's up to us to suppress our flesh, which is gonna be difficult because it is not in our nature to deny our flesh. But that is what we are called to do as followers of Jesus and children of God. So that is all I have for you today. Make sure you follow for further episodes. I also upload these episodes as podcast episodes on my podcast, the True Grit Podcast. You can find that at the link in my bio. So if you would head over there, subscribe, and give the podcast 5 stars, that would be so incredibly helpful. And I will see you in the next one.